This is Akashvani. In the program Insights, now we bring you a discussion on Chandrayaan 3, India's successful lunar mission. The participants are Dr. Annapurni Subramaniam, Director of Indian Institute of Astrophysics, and Gaura Dhawanlal, anchor.
It is a historic moment not only for India but for every Indian. Chandrayaan 3, soft landing complete on the south pole of the moon. We are very delighted to have with us Dr. Annapurni Subramaniam, who is the Director of the Indian Institute of Astrophysics, for a brief conversation. Dr. Annapurni, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me on your show.
So, Dr. Annapurni, it is of course a historic moment, and congratulations to each and every Indian, and particularly to all those who work in this field. So, India's success in terms of the detailing, all our past successes, all our past mistakes, where does the credit lie?
Yeah, so this victory is not built overnight. So this victory is built on a very big foundation, and that is the foundation and the credibility that ISRO has built up over the years. And to command the space age with this much of confidence, you would have noticed, how smoothly the entire thing went through and didn't feel like, it was like a completely complicated kind of a thing.
True.
When in reality, the most complicated mission. So this is standing on the shoulders of the best practices, the kind of system engineering and the framework which ISRO has put in over the years. And it is heartening to see that it is growing, and then the ISRO's team is able to deliver and reach newer and newer heights.
In terms of technology, Dr. Annapurni, and we know we take a lot of pride, the technology was in-house, the amount of money which was utilized was actually minuscule compared to world targets for their space missions. The ingenuity and the detailing of all this is homegrown?
Yes. So the entire framework is developed by ISRO, and the entire system engineering, to beginning with, how a concept is developed and how it is refined down the line. In terms of hardware, you have to make a qualification model, then you have to make an engineering model, and then make sure that it survives all the hard environment which the spacecraft will face during its journey. So once everything is done, then the final space module is made, and it also goes through enormous amount of tests which are confined to the parameter space one would expect, and then launched. And now in this case, we also see that the parameter space, basically if you have a value, how much can it deviate? So the deviation in general, if you talk about sigma, how much sigma can you deviate from the mean value? In this particular case, they have gone up to 6 times deviation from the mean value. So it is such that it can accommodate larger variations in the parameters which would be monitoring, which would mean that, it can actually go through conditions which are actually not envisaged. So that is the main reason why we saw such a perfect condition, because it could actually accommodate everything. But still, when we were looking at the parameters of the velocity, etc., it was like a textbook, right? So these are the kind of thing will happen. It exactly happened.
In fact, when we were watching the live visuals that were being beamed out, we saw there were a lot of young scientists and young people in the team. And do you think over the years, the involvement and engagement of younger people has grown in our space program?
So any team will have a variety of people, like, you have senior people as well as people who are juniors who would be picking up. But then there are a good number of, the responsibilities are assigned to at all team members. So you groom to not only take leadership, but also to take responsibility, also to take project management skills and then deliver. So as you rightly said, these are large teams and also large range of ages you can see right across.
A lot of young people, a lot of schools were also engaged, making sure that their
Yes.
students watched. Will encourage many more young budding scientists to come into the field, right?
That's right. So, I also was appreciating this, that in this particular mission, ISRO had put out a lot of social media updates along with pictures and catchy phrases, etc. And these really are important, and, people really loved those pictures and catchy phrases which were coming out now and then from the ISRO team. So the communication was managed extremely well, I thought.
Absolutely, making it more understandable, accessible, because we're a young...
Everybody felt part of it. That was amazing.
Absolutely right. When we talk, Dr. Annapurni, of the cost factor, so how has India managed to be so well within or really below global standards in terms of the costing?
There are several factors when it comes to costing. One is like directly if you are launching. I mean, one example is that, you have to lift up some X kg of payload. So the time taken to reach the moon is in a few days. Then you have to literally lift everything up in a straight way and reach the moon. And that rocket has to be extremely massive. But here, the trajectory used is not that way. It takes much longer to reach the moon when compared to, even if you look at Lunar 25, it was like a not swinging by kind of a thing. So it has to lift much more weight and the rocket is expensive. The much smaller rocket is able to lift the whole weight, but in a very innovative way, it is flung closer to the moon and then it is to be captured by the moon and then goes in orbit around the moon in elliptical orbits, then comes to a circular orbit and then goes down. The penalty over here is that it takes longer time for the journey. The other factors are like, the testing and everything. And our industry is also involved in it for producing and giving the components that go into the rocket or into the instrument. I think it's the nation as such is contributing to it. It's all homegrown technologies, homegrown products.
Dr. Annapurni, in terms of what Chandrayaan 3 has to send back, images, data, information, what are we looking forward to?
We are watching the tracking which is happening, like the uplinking and downlinking of data, because while it was landing also, though it was going through a already uploaded automated algorithm, ALS sequence, but the metadata which was beamed down is also coming through other networks like Deep Space Network of NASA and ESA mission. So their antenna were all tracking, like, you can see the signal going up and coming down. There are some mechanical operations like, the door has to be opened, then the slide, which has to be where the rover has to come out, the rover has to be unlatched, even the slide has to be unlatched and put it down, and then it has to come out. These tasks you have to keep commanding, and then the next set of things start. And also the communication and the power on all these have to be started. So there'll be a lot of sequence of operations one does one by one. And it depends on the charging, whether you have got the reply, etc., etc. But it's over a period of time.
So the decision to soft land the Chandrayaan 3 on the South Pole, was it a considered one? Or because this is the side of the moon that we hardly see, like the dark side of the moon? And why was this important?
This is not really the dark side in the sense that, it is near the southern polar region where the sunlight does fall. But there are large peaks, deep craters. There, the sun's light doesn't fall, and the temperature range between the sunlit part and the shadow part, temperature difference is very huge. And if you can trace back the history, Chandrayaan 1 had this moon impact probe that went to the southern part, and then that is where the whole thing started with detecting the hydroxyl molecules, and it was really a revolution. So that one, and then the M3 on board Chandrayaan 1 found the hydroxyl molecules. Then it was followed up, and then water in the form of ice was confirmed. And again, Chandrayaan 2, though we could not land in a similar latitude near the southern region, the orbiter gave a lot of high-resolution images. And we could actually map and find out where exactly the landing of the third mission can be achieved. And in the process, you can also see internationally, the attention also got attracted to the southern part of the moon, polar region. And you can see a lot more missions being planned. And next year also, there are a lot of them going up. Even the private companies are now trying to launch to the southern part of the moon. So it was a revolution indeed. And then in that context, this victory is really important.
So is there a time frame for the probes and the rovers to do its job and get back before, I think, the light patterns change?
Yeah, so the probes, as I mentioned, either the probes on the lander or the ones on the rover require power for the operations as well as collecting the data, as well as beaming it to the orbiter or the propulsion module, and then they in turn beam it down. So power is a very important thing, and in this mission, the power is generated through solar panels, for which sunlight is mandatory. So this mission, up to 14 days, it'll have solar power. So the operations will be up to those 14 days of Earth days, which would be like one lunar day.
Right. At the global level, in terms of our technology that we are using and the successes that we've had, so do you think, and even the Prime Minister spoke about, South-South cooperation and saying that any country in the South area in the developing world can achieve this. So do you think that there is a lot of scope for technology transfer, and what would be India's role in that?
So this puts India in a commanding situation, commanding level, right? Where some nations are not able to achieve, India is able to achieve. That means that the capability is there and you can do it. This is like technology readiness level is fully achieved. So if any nation or even India wants to send a bigger experiment, and even if you want to operate it for a longer period of time, then you will not be putting on a mission where it is not proved its success. Here the success rate is complete. So one would come and develop and say, I have a complicated instrument, but I would like to take it to the moon. I mean, India would be looked up as a possible option. It's actually one of the one option which has reached the southern part, right? Only one. So that is, we are at the commanding level now.
Right. So where do we go now from here? What is the next step?
Yeah, so rightly said by Prime Minister that expectations are set to very high now, because if you can do it in a very absolutely fantastic way, then more can be achieved, right? So expectations go high up. And at the same time, having reached this commanding level, I think it is important for us to make sure that we stay there. I'm not saying it is easy, but maintaining that level of leadership is not easy. You have to work very hard. You have to take up more and more challenging things, because other nations will be looking at this saying, okay, let us do more than that, right? So we have to plan more and work harder and also set our targets high so that we can continue to be in this commanding role.
Right. Is there a message that you would like to actually send out to our listeners?
Yeah, so this actually proves that, or rather, underlying statement is that the systematic planning and execution with all precautions can lead to nothing but victory.
Right.
So it's very important. But you can do it. It can be extremely challenging, may not have been done by anybody else, but it is possible to do. But the right ingredients should be there. So everything can be achieved.
So we have quite a lot of young people also tuned in. And
yes.
If you look at a certain virtue or a quality that a budding scientist needs to develop, what would it be?
Yeah, it is something like you have to be passionate about it. And then, like, you were listening to the scientist, how do you celebrate? They were saying homework. So it is part of the system that you do something, and it's not that you have to take a break to enjoy yourself. The work itself is enjoyment. I'm not saying that you have to do everything out there, but then it is important to put your best foot forward confidently, carefully, honestly, sincerely, and it would definitely reap harvest.
I think that's so beautifully said, to say that, passion dominating with patience and perseverance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Amazing qualities.
Patience, I think, is extremely important because it is a long-drawn project and you have to be motivated enough throughout the process. It is not overnight success.
Right. So you've motivated us with this conversation, and of course our scientists have motivated all of us with this achievement. Dr. Annapurni Subramaniam, thank you so much for joining us on our program.
Thank you so much.
You were listening to a discussion on Chandrayaan 3, India's successful lunar mission. The participants were Dr. Annapurni Subramaniam, Director of Indian Institute of Astrophysics, and Gaura Dhawanlal, anchor. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on a mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on a YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsdtalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 9289094044.